Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is TC here back with another episode of TC Talks, but you probably already knew that by the thumbnail. You were like, wow, guy in his car, here's the steering wheel. Oh, it's obvious this is another episode of TC Talks. And yeah, we're mobile, we're on the road, that's how we like to do it. Why do one thing at once when you could do two things at once? I'm going to work, and I'm going to be bringing you guys some of the latest Chicago sports news. And I have a feeling you already know what that's going to be. It is going to be those red hot Chicago Bulls. Perfect timing pulling up on someone braking so I get that red light. Let me pull up a little bit more so you guys can see what I'm talking. Oh, there he goes. Yeah, there he goes. There he goes. See? Exactly what we want. Those red hot Chicago Bulls. Do you see red? Because I sure did. But those Bulls, man, I mean, before we dive into how good they played, let me just give each of the teams a recommendation going forward. You know, don't fall into a 9-0 run or hole in the beginning of the game, all right? You know, I'm no expert at basketball. I barely know how the technical foul system works. But if I was going to make a suggestion, you know, maybe this next game, when you see yourself go down 5-0 or something like that, that's when you call the first timeout. Because obviously these 9-0 runs to start a game definitely tip the scales in one team's favor. Back-to-back games, that 9-0 run in the beginning was the difference maker for the game. So if I'm the Bucks, if I'm Chicago, I am not letting anybody eclipse 5 points before I call timeout and regroup, because honestly that is what you need. You need to get a point on the board. You need that first shot made, because you can't be going, you know, minutes into a game not scoring points, down 9-0. And I know the games haven't been beautiful to watch in the beginning. I know there's a little gunk to get off, you know, the shoes, a little elbow grease you got to smear back on, all that jazz. But at the same time, you know, if that's the case, you got to recognize your players. If they're not making their shots right now, hey, give them a break. Let them count to 10. You know, whatever they need to do to get that mental all set and ready to go. Because a 9-0 run, I mean, the Bulls lost 89-96, I believe it was, the first night, or 86-93, something like that. And then just last night, 114-109. That 9-point difference really does mean a lot. And when we're talking about the end of a game, you know, there was a lot of time on that clock. DeMar DeRozan wasn't fouled. If it's a 3-4 point game now, I bet you DeMar's going to get fouled, or whoever has the ball. Maybe DeMar's not a good guy to be fouling, but, you know, I'm just saying they were obviously not fouling the Bucks because the deficit was too high. But if they keep that deficit close, if that 9-point jump never happens, then that's a different ballgame in that fourth quarter. And honestly, for the Bulls, they could have let that one slip, because the Bulls totally owned the first half of the game. But there is an argument that the Bucks owned the back half of it, and that's kind of concerning if you're Chicago, because while you started off electric and, you know, some of the players continued on their groove, overall as a team you kind of fell off, and that's the momentum you're kind of taking into game two. But at the same time, maybe they're like, we don't care how we played in the third quarter, fourth quarter. We had them beat by the second quarter. Why do I need to come out and play 150%? That's just BS. I'm going to come out here, I'm going to play 100%, and we're going to secure this dub. And honestly, got to give credit to those Chicago Bulls, who thought not only would they win one game, but they would win one game on the road. The Bulls were under 500 this year on the road. I believe it was 19-22 or something like that the Bulls win on the road. So for them to come out and beat this Bucks team that they haven't beat since last season in May, I believe it was May 8th, or maybe it's March 8th. I don't know. Last season, though, one of the last games of last season is when the Bulls last beat the Bucks. Got swept by them this season. And here we thought going into the playoffs, this was going to be one of the more ugly battles, that the Bucks were just going to steamroll the Bulls and it was going to be the end of it. But honestly, these Bulls are showing their resilience. And it's not just DeMar DeRozan putting up 41 points. It's not just Alex Caruso going out there and doing the best defensive performance we've seen from a Chicago Bull in quite a while, to be honest. It is a culmination of things. I mean, even Patrick Williams was getting in on the pizzazz, and that's the guy you want to start getting hot. Me and Tyler talked about this a few weeks ago on the Winner's Circle. Patrick Williams destroyed in that one game that they played against, I want to say the Timberwolves, but it might have been the Grizzlies. I'm not sure now. But he put up 38 points, went off, and that kind of just shows you the kind of caliber player that he is. I understand that these weren't like NBA All-Stars he was going up against, but at the same time, if you're playing guys on your level and you're blowing them out, then that's the guy you need to get the ball. And now he's not going to be putting up 38 points because DeMar's playing. All these other guys are playing. But with those 12 minutes, 15 minutes that he may get a night, expect him to be deadly, especially if he's going in with that number 2 lineup for the Bucks. He is 100% on it right now, and he is someone you're going to want to keep an eye on for Chicago. But really quickly, the last thing that I want to highlight for the Bulls, and this is one of the few concerns I have, but honestly, you guys know how much I hate Vooch. We're not going to talk about that, though. Vooch had himself a game overall. Didn't look as confused, by the way, I will say. He looked much better on defense. It looked like he understood what he was trying to do, at least. It wasn't like he was just standing there dazed, I guess is the best way to put it. Because honestly, Game 1 and ending the regular season, Vooch was like, oh, look at that guy dunk. Oh, that guy's going to the basket. And this game, there was definitely moments of that, but they were moments. It wasn't the whole game. He did have a few good times where he was able to recognize a guy driving and, being able to contest the shot. And honestly, you got to applaud him for that, because that's something that we just don't see that often from Vooch. So for him to step up, that is really important. That's something that you need. Giannis scored, I want to say 34 points last night. Might have been 33, but either way, that is something that Vooch is going to have to control, because on defense, Vooch is that guy around the basket, and he needs to be able to contest those shots. I'm not saying Giannis can't score 30 points. It's probably going to happen regardless of how well Vooch plays, right? But at the same time, you need somebody to be able to slow him down. So maybe instead of 30 points, he gets 29. Maybe instead of 33, he gets 30. That's something that you need as the Chicago Bulls, because the hotter Giannis gets, the hotter the Bucks get. Because honestly, we saw Lopez, we saw Middleton hit some crucial shots, but at the end of the day, it wasn't until Giannis came roaring back in the fourth quarter that we really saw a change from this Bucks team. And if you're the Bulls, you need your big guys to be able to lock him down, be able to help out, honestly. And I'm not trying to rip on anybody, but Giannis definitely had his way last night, especially towards the end of the game. And that's something I was telling Tyler on the Winner's Circle just last night, is when it comes to the Giannis, if the second he realizes he can start just taking everything he wants in the paint, that's exactly when the Bulls are going to start losing this series, because a lot of this game, a lot of the past few games have been perimeter shots. You haven't seen a lot of, oh yeah, in-your-face slam and jamma dunks, as my brother would call them back in the day. But you go out there, you see some great three-point shooting, great perimeter shooting, and a little bit of mixing of some fancy, drives to the basket. And that's all well and good, but when Giannis really figures that out, when he starts relentlessly going at Vooch and really testing him, that's really going to put the pressure on Chicago. And honestly, that's where it goes back to DeRozan. So DeRozan got the call a lot against Giannis. Obviously, best on best kind of situation, so we're going to see that happen quite often. But the thing that I have a problem with, and it kind of showed towards the end of the game, is how much did DeMar DeRozan play in that game? 44 straight minutes. So that means he got a minute of rest each quarter about. So what happens in that fourth quarter? Legs are weaker, you get a little bit more tired, all that stuff that goes with playing, 7 minutes more than anybody on your team. I think Alex Caruso was a guy who had the second amount of minutes played at 37, and then it was like 36, and then 34, 34, 33. And while I understand DeRozan is that guy, he's the best guy, he's going to be on that court as long as he can be. Giannis isn't out there for 44 minutes. Giannis was out there for 34 minutes, I want to say, if I'm 100% accurate in my assessment. But it's definitely not 44 minutes, and I don't think Giannis has eclipsed 40 minutes in a game yet. So that's just something I would like to keep an eye on. DeRozan needs to have those fresh legs, especially if he's going to be putting up 41. I know he's got to be on the court to score, but in crunch time, I would rather it be a tight game, have DeMar play well through all four quarters, and then be able to have the legs to shoot free throws at the end of the fourth quarter than to be worried about, it's not a blowout at halftime, I guess we messed up, So that's just me. That's my opinion. But honestly, the other thing I will say, I didn't check the box score for this, unfortunately. But I would just like to say it definitely seemed like the Bulls took a lot less three-pointers. And would you look at that? Those Chicago Bulls not taking 37 threes and coming out on top over a team that steamrolled them the whole season. So, honestly, that's something to be thinking about in terms of, what is Chicago going to do going into the rest of the game, the series, because they came out and they looked great. They took shots that they needed to take. They were good, clean shots. You didn't see anybody forcing something up like we've seen so often with this team. And honestly, that's reassuring. You saw a lot of good quality shots, a lot of shots from within the three-point line, from close to within the paint, around 15-foot jump shots, not these 18 to, my toe was on the line shots like DeRozan the other game. But, overall, you got to be impressed. You got to be happy with this if you're a Chicago Bulls fan. If you're a Bucks fan, I recognize how heartbroken you may be. I know you guys were going for that series sweep, and honestly, I thought you were going to get it as well. But those Chicago Bulls showing up in force, proving that they are not going to lie down, kind of like those Chicago Cubs who just refuse to quit. But I'm going to leave it at that. It's been 13 minutes of me rambling to you guys. Please like, share, and subscribe. We are on the hunt for 50 subscribers so we can start live streaming the Winner Circle podcast on Wednesday nights with my co-host Tyler Farringall. This has been TC with another episode of TC Talks, and those Red Hot Bulls come home to Chicago to play the Bucks for the series lead. Until next time, I'll see ya. Stay classy.